It's time for Drew and Paul, and I'm sure they're doing their best. Don't worry, that's just Drew getting rid of all of the naughties before he starts the podcast.
Hello.
Hi.
How you doing?
Oh, boy. It is Friday.
It is.
All day. How am I doing? I am perfectly adequate. This week was very busy, very full of things, and I am happy that it is over.
I hear that.
Yeah. How are you?
I'm tired. I'm tired. Yeah. I was up late last night. I went to a heavy metal concert. Yeah.
Which one was this?
This was a band called Gwar.
I've heard of Gwar.
Yes.
They dress up in the funny mask thing.
Yes. They wear very elaborate costumes. Their concerts are known for. They bring out like giant monsters on stage and usually cut off bits of them and spray fake blood into the crowd. And as you know me, my hair is kind of gray, and I cannot get the fake blood stains out of my hair.
So what you're saying is don't wear your church clothes to a Gwar concert.
Exactly. A lot of people, a lot of the diehard fans wear like white t-shirts so they can kind of like this is the shirt that I wore on this day at this show. And
the closest I've ever been to that status is one point in time I was walking back to my dorm when I was in school at the University of Pittsburgh, and Insane Clown Posse was playing a venue on campus.
Okay.
And their fans have there's a lot of gimmicks in the ICP community, and I don't really want to get into too many of them because I don't want this to go into a weird place. That said, their thing is they have a proclivity to spray things with red Faygo.
Okay.
And as people were waiting to get into this show, there were 2 liters of Faygo just being shaken and then sliced or cut or stomped on. I caught a little bit on my leg, and that took a long time to get out of my jeans. Yeah, so you went to the Gwar concert. Now, does Gwar do the thing where do they do a different costume every show?
No, they have.
Okay.
No, their costumes are pretty. They stay the same from tour to tour. Outside of member changes and stuff like that. So, yeah.
Well, good. So you had a good time then. Did you go with anybody in particular?
Yeah. I have a group of friends that we go to the shows together, and it was a very lively crowd. It was a very good time. I'm just very tired, and I can't get the red spots out of my hair. So
now I am in no way trying to downplay the global popularity of the band Gwar, but I'm assuming this was played at a smaller venue.
It was at the Newport Music Hall in Columbus, Ohio, and that place was relatively packed.
Well, I mean, in other words, it's not a stadium.
It is not a stadium.
Okay.
No.
Yeah, it is. Now, is it an indoor club or is it an outdoor venue?
Yeah, indoor.
Indoor.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to guess, now I have not been to the Newport, but I'm going to go ahead and assume that it's probably 200-300 people, maybe? More? I don't know.
More than that. I would say it was probably, 800-900 people.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's actually more than I would have thought.
Yeah.
Now, you obviously we've talked about your heavy metals interest in earlier shows, but I have to ask: were there particular songs that you had hoped Gwar was going to play that they played or did not play?
So I'm not the largest Gwar fan music-wise. I mostly went for the spectacle. I had seen them once before when I was in high school, and it was an amazing show. So I just went to kind of I know their big hits, and I listened to their latest album before I went, and I was just happy to be there. It was they did not disappoint.
Yeah, now they're very heavy, right?
It's kind of more I would call their style of music thrash metal, which I would lump into the same boat as Metallica, Anthrax, Slayer. But they have a gimmick, and that's basically humans are awful and we all must die. So that's usually the theme of the music. It's very, yeah.
I didn't realize I had so much in common with them. All right, so before we get off this topic then, so Gwar primer for people who don't get into it. Give me top 3 Gwar hits.
Oh, geez.
Or top 3 songs that you enjoy. Let's do that.
So I would say Sick of You. That's a good one. They played Bring Back the Bomb, which was good. And what was the other? Oh, If You Want Blood, You Got It. So I think those are the 3 songs that I enjoyed the most. Yeah. and of course, if you want blood, you got it. They played that. They were shooting blood all over the.
And that's when the stuff got in your head.
It was pretty much constant. But
got
yeah.
It. Now, is this like a Gallagher concert where you don't want to sit in the first 2 rows, or is this, if you're in this room, you're getting hit with this?
If you're in the kind of lower, because Newport has got a like recessed area for, the quote unquote mosh pit in like a raised area. And if you're in the raised area, you're probably okay. But if you're like 2/3 of the way in that main area close to the stage, you're probably going to get hit. And if you're like right up against the rail, like I've seen some people and they were just drenched. But that's what you get at a Gwar show. Like,
in other words, what you're signing up for.
Exactly.
Now, I seem to recall the last time you ventured into a mosh pit, things didn't go especially good for you. I assume you made it out in a better shape this time?
Yeah, I avoided the worst parts of it. I'm getting too old to go into the main part, but
got it. So you learned your lesson.
But when Gwar was really like the opening acts were playing, there were some good old fashioned like old school counterclockwise mosh pits. When Gwar playing, everyone kind of like compressed against the stage. There wasn't a lot of room. People were moving and jumping and kind of bouncing off each other, but it was relatively tame at that point. Just everyone was having a good time, so it's contagious.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, good. Good. And that concludes our Gwar section of the show.
Yep.
All right, Paul. Well, let's jump right in here. So today is Friday.
Yes.
We're recording on a Friday because schedules aren't really aligning this week, and maybe next week, but we'll see. So today is new iPhone day. So I had a topic on here to see if you followed through from last episode to get your new phone. So let's have it. What happened?
Yes, I am holding in my hand a brand new iPhone 11 Pro, 256 gigabytes. Midnight green. I went ahead and pulled the trigger on that. It's nice. It's nice.
I was in an Apple store today.
Ooh, okay.
I was not there for me. I was there at lunch with somebody picking up. He was picking up things.
Okay.
And I got to see the midnight green phone up close, and not a fan. But I'm happy for you. It's a very. I mean, it's a good looking phone.
It's not for everybody, but it's for me.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Now, did you get the clear case?
I did get the clear case. Well, I like being able to see the color of my phone. That case is slippery.
Yes, that's what I was going to say. Those clear cases, for whatever reason, are not easy to hold on to because it's not like the silicone cases like I have on my 10. They give you a little bit of they're smooth, but they're not slick. Now the clear case is more almost like a hard plastic than it is a silicone, I believe, right?
Yes, it very much is for like a hard plastic. It is a fingerprint magnet, which I'll get that, but man, it is slippery. I have some hard choices coming up here. Yeah.
I had a clear case initially on my XR or 10R, whatever the correct way to say that is. When I first got into two phone life, and I got rid of it literally 4 hours after I bought it. I went on Amazon and bought the non-case case that I have now. So I know exactly where you're coming from. It is a fingerprint magnet, but to be fair, if you didn't have a case on it, the back of that phone would also be a fingerprint magnet.
Yes, though I think the matte finish doesn't kind of repels fingerprints a little bit, but it's not perfect. Yeah, I have a funny feeling I'm going to end up with another Apple leather case in my future.
So, have you ever gone third-party case?
Maybe way back in the day. Fun fact, I actually have right here beside me in this bag. I have fun story. Hold on, I dropped it. So I ordered I ordered my phone through the AT&T website. Outside the fact that their website is barely functional on iPhone pre-order day, I've had good experience with them in the past. So I ordered my phone through AT&T. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to order a Apple clear case. So I went to apple.com, found it, pushed the button, and said, I want to order it. They're like, well, you won't have it until October. I was like, you know what? That's fine. I'll just order it. I'll figure out something in the meantime. And then mere minutes after that, I got an email from Monoprice saying, hey, we also have a bunch of iPhone cases for the new iPhones. And they had a clear case. So I'm like, you know what? It was cheap. I figured I'd buy the clear case from Monoprice, try it, then get the Apple case, see if I like that better. Well, turns out Apple lied, and my clear case came today as well as the phone. So I have a Monoprice clear case as well, which I may try to see if it's a little less slippery. I tend to stick for my past 3 or 4, maybe even more than that, iPhones. I have fallen in love with the Apple leather case. I like leather; it gets a good feel to it, and plus you can spend too much money on it to have an Apple logo imprinted on the back, which I enjoy. So I haven't had a third-party case for quite some time. But I think I might give this Monoprice clear case a try to see if it's less slippery.
So the last 2 cases I've had for my personal phone have been Apple-branded cases. I had the Apple leather case, and it developed quite a nice patina. Wasn't a bad case at all. It does show scratches and everything, and it definitely gets some wear and tear, which I think is kind of the appeal of having a leather case. And I have the Apple, I have the Apple black silicone case now for my daily driver. The non-case case that I have for the 10R, that is an aftermarket case, and I'm really leery of aftermarket cases because so many. I mean, we're lousy with them, right? There are a ton of cases out there of varying quality. If you could probably go on Google and I'm not going to say it's Rule 34 if you get that reference, but
I do.
You could type in any series of nouns and adjectives and then put iPhone case after it. You're going to find it. So
true.
You will find if you have a particular taste or proclivity for any type of material or print or color or feature of a case, you can probably find it. It's a pretty lucrative market, I think, if you can get into it. I think as the market has shown. But having said all that, I have done a lot of research on phone cases, and there are certain brands that I have bought cases from that I would definitely recommend to everyone. So the first one, and I think you've seen me with this case before, is there is a company called Grovemade, and they make wooden cases, either out of walnut or maple.
Yes.
Yeah. And what's nice is you can get they basically make 3 different types of cases. They make the case that I like the most is the bumper case. And the bumper case is literally just 4 pieces of wood with some interesting joinery in the curved corners. And it's got a real nice feel, real nice look. It protects it enough that if you were to drop it on its edge or flat, it is a bumper, so it would protect it, assuming you drop it on a flat surface. I will say that I did have a pretty severe drop with my last Grovemade that snapped it. Phone was fine, but the case was no more. And that was the maple. The walnut, I don't know if it's any stronger or not. You can also get these cases with leather backs or leather wallet cases. So they fold over almost like a folio. I can tell you that's not for me. The leather backed ones with the wood would look really nice. Now, I mentioned this to say that
nice.
I mentioned this all to say that I think, Paul, that your green case with either the maple bumper or the walnut would look really sharp. Green, I think, goes well with natural wood colors.
Yeah.
And it's $60 for the bumper. So if you got it and you didn't like it, the buttons are also wooden and fit nice and measured. Yeah, I think you could do a lot worse. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm going to have to give that some thinking.
Yeah. And then there's another case company, and I just had the name of it a second ago. What was the name of that? I had that case that was like metal. Hold on a second. What was it called? It was a really nice case that it was like you got it, and you basically had to assemble it with screws. Oh,
yeah,
man,
yeah. I remember that case of yours. I thought it was a little too chunky.
Yeah, well, remember that it was also on my Macs. Right, so it was already a big phone, and in this case, kind of extended the size of the phone. Oh man. Oh well, if I could spell right, hold on a second.
Like that Grove Made case does look nice.
I am a big fan.
I like the walnut.
I can't.
Yeah.
I think the dark walnut, or actually, I don't know. I could go either way if I had the. If I had the green, I would probably go a little bit lighter just to get a little more Man, I can't find this case, and I can't remember what it was called. I will find it and put it in the show notes. Man, I mean, you think it would show up on here? I guess more people have gotten into this racket. Oh man, that's really gonna make me mad that I can't remember it. If I get it, I'll put it in the show notes. But anyway, those are the two that I think I would recommend. The metal case that I had was definitely more protective than the Grove Made case. But again, it's metal. It adds a little bit of weight. Depending on what kind of frame you get, it's going to add some dimensions to your phone. Where the Grove Made ones are definitely kind of minimalistic.
Yeah, very much so.
So anyway. I mean, those I think are good, solid aftermarket cases. And if you have a mind to, you can get a key. What are they? Are they Qi chargers? Key chargers? How do you say it?
I believe it's Qi. Yeah,
it's Qi, right? They have a wooden based and metal Qi charger as well that looks really nice.
Yeah, luxurious.
I mean, yeah, it looks good. Anyway, so those are the cases that I would get. So you've had the phone now. I'm assuming you got it today.
I did.
So what do you think? Other than the color, what do you think?
It feels heavier. It's more weighty. I guess that's mostly because of the bigger battery. It definitely is noticeably faster than my iPhone 10. And I guess all the other big changes are just iOS 13 related changes. I haven't really got to give the camera a good once over yet. So I don't have a big verdict on that, though I do agree. It kind of the camera bump does look a little bit ridiculous, but
yeah.
Man, what are you gonna do? 3 cameras, there they are.
I mean, I'm not gonna knock Apple for it. They know what's best for us, but yeah, three camera lenses is oof.
Yep. So, have you installed iOS 13 yet, Drew?
I did. I have iOS 13 installed, and I have Watch iOS. What are we up to? 6 now?
Yeah, I have not done the Watch yet. That'll be tomorrow morning, but I did install iOS 13 yesterday, and obviously I have it on my new phone. So what do you think?
I'm a fan.
Okay.
I'm a fan. I was apprehensive because I'm not an install the beta guy, and I had heard from friends and other podcasts that the beta was wonky, and that made my warning sirens go off that maybe I didn't want to install it right away. But so far, no regrets. Everything seems to be working pretty good. So, I mean, I guess we can steer this into the iOS 13 impressions discussion. Yeah. So, obviously iOS 13 dropping, what was it, yesterday?
Yesterday, yep.
Yeah, so, iOS 13 dropped yesterday, which is a Thursday. And, I did like I said, I got the pop-up just like everybody else did. I did the install. I've been really looking forward to iOS 13. There's been a few features. There's been 2 features in there that I have been longing for ever since I heard that they were going to be coming. And the 2 biggest new features that I'm really excited about are the battery charging changes, which I'm still not exactly sure how it works, but it's supposed to be better for me, and the call ignoring function, which automatically will send unknown callers, aka people not in your contacts, to your voicemail and give you a missed call notification. So you don't get spammed quite as much. So I have that turned on my personal phone. I did not turn it on my work phone just because that is a number that is on my business cards, and people will try to call me eventually. But I did turn it on my personal phone. I've already had 2 of those calls drop to my list, and it's pretty cool because I can just look at transcripts at my leisure. They don't interrupt me or bug me. That is a feature that I think is super awesome. I'm really thankful for it. It's basically doing what AT&T and Verizon want to charge you money to do, right? I mean, granted, you still get the little notification badges, and, being little OCD me, I don't like notification badges, so I'm constantly clearing them if I see them. But I think it's a really good feature, and I'm really happy that they did that. I think Google has had that on their phones for a while now.
I believe so.
I think Apple's. Yeah. I believe Apple was behind the curve on this one, but I think they realized a good thing when they saw it, and I'm glad that they put it in. The battery charging thing, as someone who has an older iPhone 10, obviously my battery isn't as fresh and new as a new phone, which definitely impacts my battery life performance. So apparently this new battery charging feature has some kind of smart learning feature that kind of watches your battery charging habits and charges your phone better. I don't really understand.
So what I've done a little bit of research and stuff on this. From what I get the impression is it'll try to learn like when you wake up in the morning, your typical usage habits, like when you usually go and get your phone the first time. Obviously, if you set an alarm in the morning, it kind of uses that as well. And once it knows what time it thinks you're going to wake up, it'll only charge the phone to 80% and then keep it there. And then only go to 100% right before you wake up. So instead of having to keep it all the way at 100% and keep that going, it only does 80%, which I guess is better for the battery. It allows it to last longer. So, yeah.
Yeah, because that's always been the things with battery technologies, right? Is the more times you charge it to full, keep it charged at full, it kind of loses that. And I don't know how this works. I'm not an EE, but apparently keeping it charged at 100% at all times or plugged in all the times makes the battery kind of forget where 100% really is. So that's why you'll see phones kind of drop from like 100% to 40% in the span of an hour, because it doesn't really know where 100% is anymore.
Yeah, and plus the battery's hotter, and that's not good for it as well. And yeah, so
yeah,
if it works, like it's on my phone. So if it works and I don't ever notice it, then I'm all for it. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. What about you? So, what are some other features other than those 2 that you've noticed that you like so far?
So there's 2 that I really like. One is really, really small, and the other one is much bigger. I love the new volume change indicator. So have you changed the volume on your phone?
I have. I noticed that it's off to the left now.
It's off. It's not that big box that covers up everything on the side. It's a very subtle, it's right beside the volume button, so you can see what's going on. It's no longer in the way. It's a small little change, but it's much appreciated. The other one for me is all the CarPlay improvements. I'm a big CarPlay guy. I use it all the time. The biggest feature that I really like, well, there's 2. One, you can now look at your calendar in CarPlay, which is spectacular. And they also have a new dashboard view where the left side is your driving directions, and then on the right you get your now playing, you get your next meeting, and what's the other thing? Oh, so the left side is the map, and the right side is now playing, your calendar, and your next step in your drive. So it's nice to have that all in one screen without having to switch back and forth. Yeah, it's just a little bit nicer. I like it. It's good. Now here's the question, Drew. Dark mode.
I never cared about dark mode in anything.
Okay.
I never cared. Listen, I know that people go ape for dark mode, and like that's a thing that nerds will do on the internet now. Like if you release an app and you don't have a dark mode, like apparently that means that nerds are too good to use it. Like, what I don't care what I'm using. I don't care if I'm using my phone. I don't care if I'm using a web browser. I don't care if I'm using I don't care if I'm using a like Visual Studio Code or like anything like that. Like I don't get a hard on for dark mode. I never have. I think dark mode is one of those things where if it's good for you, great. But like, don't dog a program. Like if the worst thing you could say about a program is that it doesn't have dark mode, you need a harder life. Like there are more things you can get upset about. Like I wish those were the things that I could get upset about. Like for the longest time, so many people have poo-pooed SQL Server Management Studio because it doesn't have a native dark mode. Like really, that's what you're going to get upset about.
Right. Exactly.
And now we have dark mode native on the phone. There have been other apps that have had a dark mode. The official Twitter app that you hate and that I tolerate has had a dark mode for a long time. Apollo, other third-party apps have had dark mode on the phone. So I don't care. I mean, in fact, I so don't care about dark mode that I do this podcast from my Windows 10 computer in my basement, and Windows 10 in a recent like bizarro world type thing released a light mode for their OS. So what's that even about? Like now I have a white taskbar. Like what is going on? So I don't know. I have never been a person who cares really if I have a light or dark mode experience. And I think there's something to be said for accessibility too. I've heard arguments on both sides of the fence, and I'm not an accessibility or visualization person, so I'm definitely talking out of my butt here. But I feel like people have made a bigger deal of dark mode making it harder and less accessible than white lighter backgrounds.
Yeah.
So I've heard that argument. The other place that dark mode gets a lot of consternation is when people are presenting. Some people seem to think that dark mode presentations look better than light mode presentations, which first of all, I think is totally subjective. I think a white bright background or a brighter background with contrasting text looks better than a darker background with contrasting text. I just do. You're welcome to tweet at me. I'll ignore you. I don't really care. This is my opinion. This is my podcast and Paul's podcast. You're listening it for our opinion, not yours. I don't know, man. I'm way off the rails on this one. Save me, Paul.
No, it's fine. So, I kind of feel the same way, but I lean towards, I prefer the dark mode appearance. But like, if an app doesn't support it, like, it's fine. Like, I'm not going to not use an app because, oh my God, it's white text with black, it's white background with black text. Oh no. I just think that the darker colors look better. I appreciate it. Like being able to use mail and, it has a nice, dark, nice dark mode theme. Same thing with like the Safari Chrome. Yeah, I think it looks better, but if it wasn't there, I'd live. And if an app doesn't support it, I'm not going to stop using it. So, yeah.
I will say that the only time I really care about having a dark background is in any kind of terminal application. Like, if I'm using iTerm on my Mac, which is my default terminal application on my Mac, or if I'm using a console like the new Windows Terminal Preview, I like a dark background for terminal windows. But that is it. Like the default terminal on the Mac is the white background with the black text, which
that's no good.
Works in a pinch. But when I'm staring at a cursor, I want a black background, which I think people translate to text editors or IDEs or other applications. I don't know. Like that is the only thing that I will actively go in and change. Everything else is just whatever. I just don't care. Okay. Dark mode. I don't think we really care. So the other big changes, with this release, and you bought the new phone. So have you tried any of the new Apple services yet?
I have signed up for Apple Arcade. I haven't had an opportunity to really play a lot of games. Mostly just downloaded a few, launched them, messed around. It is getting some pretty positive buzz. So I'm excited to see how it goes. See if I can find a game that I like. I'm excited for, when the kids get upgraded to iOS 13 to kind of let them loose on it as well. It is kind of nice. Like, I'm looking forward to being able to like go to my son and go, okay, here's this tab on the App Store. It's full of games. There's no ads. No one's going to ask you to buy gems or coins. It's just games. And by the way, you can play whatever you want. It's already paid for. Go nuts. I am looking forward to that and seeing how they like it. Other than that, no, I really haven't done much else.
Yeah, I haven't signed up for any of the services yet. I am really tempted to sign up for Apple Arcade. I think you get a month free.
Yeah, you do. Yep.
Yeah, I'm really tempted to sign up for it because I haven't played many mobile games on my phone. Like, there are a few that I have purchased in the past that I will fire up from time to time when the mood strikes me. But I am tempted to see what games are on there. There were a few, I think, that were getting really positive buzz that were available on there.
Yeah.
Like that Sayonara Wild Hearts. That seems to be one that is being universally loved. So, it might be worth me signing up to check it out. So, I don't know. I'm thinking about it. I would love to hear more of your impressions as you start to play games or find anything you think I might like.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't play a lot of games on my phone, but I like to have one or two just in case, like, I'm in a situation where I'm just kind of, bored and I need to fill some time. I don't play mobile games for, hours at a time. I want something that's just, quick, fun, something I can get in and get out of relatively easily. So hopefully I'll find a couple of those. But, it is nice not to have to worry about ads or, I only have so much energy and I have to buy gems to keep playing and, all of that's gone. So that's nice.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's the promise of it. And I'm kind of watching the reviews come in. I'm kind of looking to see what games bubble up to the top. And if I see something that looks interesting to me, I will definitely sign up for the free trial. It's just a question of when. And I think the games rotate every month or something, or they add new games every month.
Yeah,
how does that work?
I think they're going to be adding new games, constantly. So
it's not like okay, for the month of whatever, October. We're going into October here soon. So for the month of October, they're not going to replace games that are on offer. They're just going to continue to add.
Yep.
Okay, well, that's cool.
And I guess I think I said earlier that these are going to be like Apple exclusive, and that's not true. Like Sayonara Wild Hearts is available on other platforms as well, but all of the games are exclusive. They won't be on Android. They are exclusive to Apple on the mobile platform.
Oh, so they might be released on other devices, like say a Switch.
Yep.
Okay,
in fact,
got it.
What I've heard of Sayonara Wild Hearts is also going to be on the Switch and PC, and I guess it's better experience either using a keyboard or a controller. But I guess you can use a controller with iOS now. So yeah.
So apparently, for a little while now, you have been able to link either a PlayStation 4 Bluetooth or Xbox Bluetooth controller with Apple TV. Apparently, with iOS 13, you can now do that to your phone as well, which changes the story quite a bit. So apparently, you can do that. I have not tried to do it yet, but I'm told that it is now possible.
Yeah, I haven't tried it yet either, but yeah. Imagine at some point I'll break out the old iPad and pair a PlayStation controller to it and give it a try. Because honestly, I do feel kind of silly pairing a PlayStation or a controller with my iPhone and using that. That just feels wrong somehow.
It's a little weird.
Yeah, it's a little weird. But yeah. I guess I also could use the Apple TV when that comes out. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Any other thoughts about iOS 13 before we jump to the next topic?
Nope, I'm good.
All right. So the next thing I had on the document for this week is we touched on it a little bit last week, and I said we were going to bring it back. I wanted us to each give our top 5 favorite subreddits.
Okay. I'm ready.
Things that we look at every week. And the only rule we had is this is a family program. We said no, not safe for work content. So excessive gore, consenting adult activities of that nature.
Okay, now I have a question about rules clarification.
Okay.
What about subreddits that is not only like it's not a not safe for work subreddit, but sometimes has not safe for work content?
You mean like swears?
So, it's not an adult subreddit, and most of the content in there is family friendly, but every once in a while there's something that's a little risque. Is that going to be acceptable? If it's not, I have.
I don't know.
I have more than 5.
I'll tell you what. I'll tell you what. All right, let's do this.
Okay.
Let's do this.
Okay.
Why don't you give me your list?
Okay.
And it's like the definition of pornography, Paul. I know it when I see it.
Okay.
So yeah, you go.
Okay.
And
okay.
if we stumble into weird territory here, then we'll back off. How about that?
There's just one that's, it'll be fine. It'll be fine. We're gonna roll with it. Okay.
All right. Okay.
So how do you want to do this? You want to do 5 through 1, take turns?
Yeah. Why don't you go first?
Okay. So my number 5 top subreddit is metal memes. So
okay, metal
memes. So if you're not a metalhead, this subreddit is not for you, because it's very just, if you're not in the metal culture, it's not going to make a lot of sense. But they're basically just stupid memes, and all of them have a metal theme, and they make me laugh consistently. Yeah. I probably should keep track of all these in the...
Yeah. Put them in the document.
Yep. So that's my number 5.
Okay.
What's your number 5, Drew?
We're gonna go back and forth on this.
Yeah, let's go back and forth. Back and forth.
All right. No, that's good. Okay. My number 5, and this is a dangerous subreddit to go down this rabbit hole with, is there is a subreddit called Home Lab. Now, I am a home labber. What this means is I have a bunch of computing equipment in my basement that I use for either practical purposes, like hosting a media server, or for my learning. So when I was learning VMware, if I was learning networking, if I was learning Linux, or if I was learning, something that I needed to spin up a VM not on my local machine, I basically have built a home lab. And the home lab community is interesting because, it's mostly people, I would say, that are wanting to learn usually networking or virtualization or containers or something like that. And what it is it is usually like gratuitous pictures of people who have spent way too much money on hardware for their home. They basically build data centers in their basement. And, listen, I have spent considerable time and money on my home lab. I'm not going to deny that. Like, I have a NAS, I have a couple old Dell servers that are sometimes running, sometimes not. I have a custom-built server that I built. I have a lot of storage. I have my Raspberry Pi cluster for Kubernetes. I have my Pi hole. I've got switches. Like, I've got stuff. I've made an investment, but some of these cats are, wow, it gets pretty crazy. And you have to wonder, how do they keep it cool? What's their electricity bill? But that's all to say that not only is it cool to see what other people are up to with their free time, it's also a pretty good place to go learn some things. So if you wanted to learn about how Proxmox works, or you had questions about networking, or you wanted to stand up Plex with some goofy configuration, like, this is the place to go to learn about that. So Home Lab's a pretty cool place to go check out. If you've ever wanted to build a home lab, if you want to see how other people have built their home labs, if you have a particular question about something that you're trying to figure out, you may actually... I have found answers to technical questions in Home Lab before for things that I was dealing with my actual job. So it's worth checking out. Yeah. All right. What do you got?
All right. So my number 4 is a subreddit called D&D Behind the Screen. So it is a subreddit focused for game masters But what's great about it, it's not like a place to come and ask questions and have discussions. It's really a place for people that have kind of made their own homebrew content or ideas for the game, adventure ideas, plot hooks, to come and just share them with the community. I like it because I just, like I run a D&D game myself, and it's just great when you kind of have just like, a writer's block where you can't figure out what to do. I love coming in through here and just scrolling through and just getting ideas and getting inspired by other dungeon masters who have, made just really poured their heart and soul into some of this content. And it's helped me be a better dungeon master. And it's great. It's a great community if you're play Dungeons and Dragons.
Okay, as I do.
Yeah.
Okay. So the next one I have is one that I browse when I'm having a little bit of a mental block or I need a little bit of a break. So it is a subreddit called Cinemagraphs. And cinemagraphs are usually GIFs, not GIFs. Don't at me. They are GIFs of usually either videos that somebody has made into close to a perfect loop. So, like, you will go and you will find, like, a waterfall. And it's an animated GIF of a waterfall that auto-loops and looks like it's one continuous image. And some of these, like, some of them are way better than others. But the ones that are really, really good, like, I've tweeted them a few times, they're really, really good. Like, there's one out there right now of an antelope skull.
Subscribing right now. Woo, doing it.
Yeah. Have you, are you into this?
Yeah, I didn't know I was, but I am now.
Yeah. And, people make these. I'm not really sure how they do it, but they get them to be perfect loops. And if you, like, mouse over the image, you will see that they're usually not longer than 3 or 4 seconds, but you can watch it all day. And they're pretty awesome. So Cinemagraphs is pretty good.
Woo. Yeah. Yep. Subscribed. Instant subscribe.
Okay.
So
next.
Okay. So my number 3 is the crappy design subreddit.
Okay, I had that one too. All right, go ahead. Talk about.
That's okay. We can each have one.
Okay.
So it is really so. I like nice things. I appreciate good design in everything. And this subreddit really celebrates the opposite of that. Things that are just designed poorly, they're ugly, they're confusing. It's it makes me laugh. I'm scrolling through it right now, and there's just it is terrific.
Some of them are really bad.
Yeah, some of them are truly, truly awful.
All right. Now, I'm gonna move.
Okay.
I'm gonna skip over because I had crappy design next, so I'm gonna skip over that one, and I will backfill this. So mine kind of goes out of order now, but the next one I have is Perfect Fit. Okay, so I have a particular area of my brain that gets itchy, and this subreddit is the perfect scratch. So what this is a bunch of either pictures or, again, videos, animated GIFs, whatever, of things that just fit perfectly together. Like, the perfect example is, like, a cup that fits perfectly into the cup holder where there's, like, no gap, right? Or, like, 2 pieces of tubing that go together so there's, like, a perfect no gap there. Or things that line up, like if you have multiple kind of pictures that just kind of all line up. Like, it's so incredibly satisfying. Like, there's even a picture out there right now where, like, there's this tile laid out, and the shadow just perfectly follows the pattern of the tile. Like, that to me just speaks to me on a lot of different levels. So it's r/perfect fit. It is a pretty cool thing to go look at.
Awesome.
Yep.
Okay.
What do you got next?
All right. So my number 2 is Zoomies. Zoomies.
right.
I love this. The theme of this subreddit is animals running and playing. It's mostly dogs, so I'm mostly here for the dogs. But it's literally just GIF after GIF of animals having a blast. I'm watching one right now of this dog playing with this rope, and he is so happy. And I could watch this GIF like for at least 15 minutes and smile the entire time. It's just
I'm watching the armored zoomies, which I think is meant to be cute, but that rhinoceros is going to kill that one.
Yeah, it's nice when I'm just throwing through my like hot feed and I see dogs just running around. It brings a smile to my face. So yeah, yep, it's great. If you need more happiness in your life, /r/zoomies. There you go.
Okay. All right, so next up, I have a perennial classic that I think I have shared with you before. It is Where Did the Soda Go?
Okay.
Okay, so what this is I'm sure that you have seen either on the internet or on TV the infomercials that sell ridiculous products. It's basically clips of infomercials out of context.
Okay.
So it's like usually it is like the part of the commercial where like somebody does something dumb, like drop something between their car seats, and they have like the feigned like outrage reaction, or it's usually like after they've got the product and they're admiring how good the product is. So it's just little snippets of like infomercials or like made for TV stuff that are just kind of like in there. Like I'm looking at I'm looking at one right now where like they're using some kind of binoculars. Wow. Yeah, it's pretty good. Or the Arctic Cat. The Arctic Cat's a pretty good one because like it's just a video of a guy putting on a hat and then having a blue glow around him at all times. Yeah, so it's just a bunch of videos out of context that are from some kind of commercial, and I just think they're pretty funny. All right, and now you're number one.
My number one. This is the one that where sometimes it gets a little sketchy, but I love this subreddit. It is ATBGE. Which stands for...
Wait.
ATBGE. It stands for awful taste, but great execution.
Okay.
Yeah. And it is literally pictures of things that are just horrific, but done particularly well. One example I'm looking at right now is this woman has a set of acrylic nails that look like lava lamps. Again,
wow. Awful
taste, but great execution.
Those stairs are amazing and terrifying.
Yes. Yeah. Now, sometimes you'll scroll through and you see a lot of tattoos with genitalia or jewelry with that kind of stuff, and those will be not safe for work. But you can just scroll past those if you don't want to see those. Yeah, here is a pair of shorts made out of air fresheners. Again, really done really well, but awful taste. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm gonna subscribe to this.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right. You got me.
Mm-hmm.
You got me with that one. All right. I'm gonna subscribe. All right. Now my number one is one that it doesn't seem to get updated all that often anymore. Usually it's like maybe once a week something new will show up in there. But the back catalog of this subreddit is insanely good. And when it does get updated, it's pretty funny. So it's Real Life Doodles. So Real Life Doodles is somebody takes a video and adds like a face or legs to it.
Yep.
Like stick figure style usually.
Yep.
And some of them are pretty good.
Oh.
So, yeah, Real Life Doodles for me is one that I don't think I've ever not seen this, like a new post show up in my feed and not been impressed with the level of talent that goes into this, but also some of them are also pretty funny. So
Yep. This is a great subreddit.
yeah. So real life doodles, I think, would probably be my number.
Oh,
Yeah.
we put
Reddit is magical.
we put together a good list right there.
Pretty good list. I mean, I've got some other ones that are worth visiting, but I wouldn't consider them my top 5. Like perennial visit AWW is a good one, right? You will always find cute animals in there.
That's on my honorable mention list as well. Yeah.
Yeah, and I like to participate in the board games subreddit as well, just because you get some pretty decent reviews in there, and you get pretty good announcements of what's going on. So I mean, there's informative subreddits that are pretty popular, but aren't particularly niche like the other ones we talked about.
Yep.
So I don't know. I feel it's a pretty good list. Pretty good list all around. Oh boy. Okay. Let's see here. So we got 2 topics left. I feel like we have time for one of them. Which one do you want to do?
Having watched your Twitter live stream of this, I would love for you to give an update of your graphics card modifications.
Yeah. So for those of you that don't follow me on Twitter, I had a particular bug up my butt to improve the cooling of my home PC build. So I think I've tweeted pictures of my home PC before. It is a very, very late generation Core i9. It's got a lot of memory, and it has a big honkin' graphics card in there. For those of you that aren't, custom PC builders or big PC gamers, so here's the deal. The faster you make things go and the more powerful you make things in the PC space, the hotter they get. That's just a general guideline. Is faster equals hotter. And, faster usually means more powerful. So in my case right now, I have a Core i9 processor, which doesn't run as hot as my last processor, but still can put out some pretty serious BTUs. And at some point over the past, 6 or 7 years, water cooling of computer components has really taken off to the point that you can go online or to Micro Center like I like to do, and you can get what is known as an all-in-one cooler for your home PC processor or home CPU that is relatively easy to install. Like if you're able to install your own motherboard and your own processor, you can install an all-in-one cooler. And
it's so easy, even I was able to do it for my son's computer.
Yeah, like, a lot of people, if you don't travel in these circles, when you hear about water cooling a PC, you have nightmares of dumping liquid somewhere into your case and hoping it doesn't go into places it's not supposed to. But these all-in-one coolers are pretty foolproof. They're completely sealed systems. You don't have to do maintenance on them. They're commodity parts. They're probably more prone to failure than something you would put together yourself. But the promise is that for about $150 to $200, you get a really rock-solid cooling performance for your computer. It's also much quieter than a traditional fan cooler on your CPU. So if you remember the days of desktop computers and, you would hear fan noise in there, typically that was the CPU fan just because it spun at very high RPMs to move air across a series of heat sinks. And, the heat would come off the processor into these large spire heat sinks, and then the air, they would basically radiate heat, and then you would blow air across those to transfer the air out. And then that heat had to somehow make it out of your case, okay? Or else the heat would just build up in your case, so maybe, your cooler could keep up for a little while, and then, eventually it would kind of succumb, and you'd get behind something. Now, these all-in-one coolers, the way these work are, you basically put a pump over top of your CPU, and that pump has 2 lines running into it that basically forms a coolant loop, much like a car radiator, because literally what you install is, in addition to this pump over your CPU, you're basically putting a radiator block somewhere in your computer case. So the pump circulates water through the core of the pump and the internal, what is known as a water block. So the water flows through that water block. Cold air comes in one end, and warm water, or not cold air, cooler water, I should say, comes in one end of the pump, and the heat transfer gets picked up by the water and shot out the other side. And that water then travels to a radiator, which has fans blowing in it, because the idea of a radiator is that as the warm liquid hits the radiator, it has a large surface area, and then you have fans that either pull air through the radiator or blow air through the radiator. That heat is dissipated over that large area, and it's vented out. Again, main thing here is it's way more efficient than traditional air coolers. It's much quieter. You don't have as many moving parts as a bunch of fans in your case. Well, that's all well and good for your CPU, and you know that enables you to overclock your processor if that is your want, and it helps keep things running relatively smoothly. And again, relatively easy to get into, very easy to set up. It doesn't require you to do any of the plumbing. Everything is included. You just install it, screw it in, and you're good to go. Now, that's all well and good, but typically these days, your CPU isn't the hottest part of your case anymore. If you're a big PC gamer, you probably have a very large graphics card in your computer, and I had probably, at the time, and I don't know if it's still the case, probably one of the most powerful aftermarket video cards you can buy.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, on most PC builds, your graphics card is also the most expensive part of that.
It can be. I mean, you think about it, right? Your processor, a modern consumer high-end desktop PC processor these days, depending on, again, what your requirements are, will run you between $250 or $500 or $600. Again, there's a lot of factors that go into that, and we could split hairs over what makes a good consumer versus high-end versus gaming processor, but let's consider that the price range. A top-of-the-line graphics card these days, and I'm not talking about the very reserved, high-end, like graphics card design for studio designers that are doing animation. I'm talking about gaming performance here strictly, because that's what I primarily use my PC for. These graphics cards will typically run from anywhere from $1,200 to $1,600. So that graphics card that I have in there is probably over 50% of the total cost of my build. So it is by margin the most expensive part I have in my case. And for most people it will be, but you can get a decent enough graphics card to game at the highest settings on, you know, not the highest resolution monitors, but decent-ish computer monitors for probably half of that. But even then, best case, you're probably spending as much on your graphics card as you did on your processor, if not a little bit more. So typically, yes, you are correct. These graphics cards are probably the most expensive part of your build because, again, the graphics card is what's going to give you the best bang for your buck performance for games. So anyway, now here's the thing. The more powerful the graphics card, the same thing kind of applies here. The hotter they get. And this graphics card gets insanely, insanely hot. So the graphics card I have is an EVGA. It is a 2080 Ti, which if you're not a gamer and you're not a PC builder, that means absolutely nothing to you. It's just one way to say is that, you know, this graphics card is based on a reference card design put out by the NVIDIA Corporation. So NVIDIA develops the technology that goes into this card, and then these aftermarket card makers basically license it and produce their own versions of the card. And in doing so, they're able to take the original specifications and improve on them. So here, take a for instance. Let's say, let's see, I'm trying to think of an accurate paradigm here. Man, I'm having trouble thinking of one, but bear with me here. So let's say NVIDIA makes a graphics card called the 2080 Ti, and it has a certain amount of memory. It has a certain clock speed that it runs at. It can do X number of, you know, teraflops of graphics processing or whatever the metric is, right? A company like EVGA that makes the graphics card that I have can take that reference design and quote-unquote improve upon it. And usually what that means is just taking the base spec and making all the numbers bigger. So they can get more performance out of the PCB in the design than NVIDIA was willing to do when they released it. Now, the downside here is that in order to do that, they have to make things move faster, which means more heat. So usually when you buy these aftermarket video cards, they come with much bigger cooling solutions on them than you would if you had bought a quote-unquote reference card from NVIDIA directly. Am I making sense so far?
Yes.
Okay. So that's a long way to say that the graphics card that I have in my case right now was a triple slot design, meaning that it takes up 3 slots in the back of my case.
That's a big boy.
It's a big boy. Most are 2, some are 1. Most modern high-end graphics card are at least 2 slots. This was 3. And if you follow me on Twitter, you would have seen pictures of me disassembling this card to do what I'm about to talk about. You know, the PCB that contains the chips and the bits and all the things that make the graphics pretty is actually very, very thin. This heatsink and cooling solution that was on this card was air-based. So it's like I was saying before. So much like an old computer processor cooling system, this just had 3 big honking fans on it with this huge, huge aluminum heatsink on top of it. Now, that in itself isn't a bad thing. It's effective at keeping the card below temperatures that would cause it to lock up or shut down to protect itself. I wasn't hitting any situations where the card itself was failing, but the problem is that under load, when I would be playing a game, it would get very, very loud because the 3 fans that were on this particular cooling solution spun at very high RPMs and was moving air across an uneven surface, so you get kind of a wind whipping effect as the wind kind of channels through this huge aluminum heat spreader and then cycles out. And oh, by the way, all that heat has to go somewhere. Well, the only place it was going was inside my case, which makes everything else around it warmer. So the side of my case is tempered glass because I like seeing the different colored LEDs I have in my case.
Gross.
I have a tempered glass side case. And when I would be playing a game, I could take my hand, like the back of my hand, like my knuckles, and set it against the side of my case, and it would be not just warm, but hot. Okay.
Yeah.
So anyway, long story short, this graphics card is very, very powerful. It's also very, very loud under load, and it was causing some heat buildup in my case, which also reduces the cooling performance of everything else I have in my case that is designed to move air across it. Okay?
Okay.
So for a while now, I have wanted to do something about that, and my options here are one of 2 things. The first option is what I'm going to consider the nuclear option, and that is a fully customizable custom cooling loop. So what that entails is basically buying individual cooling components and all of the tubing and pumps and radiators and building what amounts to a custom cooling network inside of my case. Now, that is daunting for a lot of reasons. 1, I've never done it before. And 2, you're responsible for the reservoir and the pump and the liquid that goes through all these components, which means you have to do all the fittings yourself, right? You have to mix your coolant with distilled water. You have to fill the reservoir. You have to make sure the pump never runs out of coolant. You have to cut and measure all the tubing so you don't have a bunch of tubing going everywhere in your case. The components themselves that's a big one, right? So if you get the fittings wrong and you turn on your pump, well, water's going to spray everywhere in your case, and you don't have to be a computer expert or electronics expert to know that coolant and electronics don't mix.
Yeah, no.
So there's a risk there. And as somebody who has never done this before, I have watched a lot of videos. I've done a lot of research recently on it, and I feel comfortable enough to attempt it. But I guarantee you it would probably end poorly for me just because of A, my luck, and B, you have to do a lot of planning and purchasing and customization to get it to work. Now, when it all works, it is probably the most effective and silent and efficient way to cool your computer. And there are, again, some really good subreddits out there that show off finished computer builds with these custom cooling loops. And it's hard to not get excited about the prospect of doing it. And I think that at some point, probably my next full build, I will attempt to do a full custom loop. I will.
Wow.
Now, the less nuclear option here is you can buy adapters for graphics cards that let you attach all-in-one coolers to them. So much like the solutions that you can buy for your CPU cooling, you can buy these solutions for your graphics card too. Now, the catch here is that they're not universal. Unless you have a reference card from NVIDIA, the coolers that are designed to be quote-unquote universal may or may not fit your aftermarket cards. But, ever so helpfully, companies like EVGA that made my particular graphics card sell custom all-in-one coolers for your graphics card. So that's what I bought. So I ordered an all-in-one cooler designed to be mounted to my graphics card. Now, what that means is much like installing it on your CPU, you have to basically take your graphics card out of your case. You have to detach the existing cooling solution from it, which means unscrewing a lot of really tiny and fragile screws, and then taking off the cooling solution, and then cleaning the PCB, getting rid of all the old thermal grease, all the old thermal tape, cleaning it the best you can with very, very high percentage alcohol, so you don't leave a lot of residue behind. And then basically installing all the other bits, including this pump, which then connects to the graphics card. And that pump is connected to a 120 millimeter radiator that then sits in my case in addition to my other radiator. So they're two independent pumps.
Radiators. Okay.
I have two radiators in my case. One for the CPU and then one for the graphics card. So right now, if you look in my case, you will see that I have a pump attached to my CPU that vents to a radiator in the top of my case. And then I have my graphics card, which has a custom shroud on it with another integrated pump that then goes to a separate radiator. So there are two independent pumps that are powered there. Now, again, if I wanted to be efficient and I wanted this to look a lot better, the pro here is that if I went with a total custom cooling loop in my case, I could just have one pump in my case. And the way this would work with a total custom cooling loop is you would have one pump, and that pump would basically have okay, so I'm getting ahead of myself here. So basically the pump connects to a reservoir full of coolant, which isn't necessarily water. They are mostly water-based, but they have other things added to them that increases their thermal conductivity, and also things in them that reduce corrosion through the custom components, because that's a thing you have to worry about if you do this. And the pump goes to the reservoir, which then another tube connects the reservoir to usually your CPU. And then from your CPU, you go to a radiator. And then from there, you could go from that radiator to your graphics card, then to another radiator, and then back to the pump. So basically, the rule is that you have component, radiator. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yeah, that does make sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And again, I would only need one pump. I would only need one reservoir. And the tubing would be better quality. I would have more control over where the tubing goes, because you can use rigid or flexible tubing. But again, it's way more work. There's way more risk involved. And it's very expensive. So if you start pricing out individual components to do this, you will easily spend $600 to $1,000 to do this right, assuming you do it right the first time. So it's very expensive, but it would give me the best bang for the buck. So anyway, I went through the process of installing this custom cooler. Now, it's kind of a good news, bad news situation here. So the cooler is performing beautifully. The temperatures on my graphics card are way down. The noise is way down. The temperature in my case is way down. So it is doing its job. However, okay. My CPU cooler is manufactured by Corsair. And unless it is a variable speed pump, meaning the speed of the pump is directly correlated to the temperature being reported by the CPU. So as the CPU gets hotter, the pump ramps up to move liquid through it faster.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Makes sense.
So at idle, or doing, say, recording a podcast, it's dead silent. It doesn't make any noise. At higher speeds, you can hear it a little bit. And after you first install some all-in-one coolers, sometimes depending on how long you've had your case, on its side or upside down or whatever, you may get a little air buildup with little air bubbles that you'll hear rushing through it, but those eventually dissipate. So anyway, the Corsair thing is really, really quiet and a good cooler. The GPU cooler, by contrast, makes a low hum all the time. And it's not loud, but it's not
constant.
Quiet. But it's constant. And it almost sounds like I'm sure at some point in your life you've had a mini fridge.
Yes.
Right? And, when the fridge clicks on, it's not loud, but there's a little hum. This isn't quite that loud, but it's constant because the pump in this card is designed to run at 100% all the time, and you cannot turn it down. So even when it's not doing anything, the pump is running constant at 100%. Now, when I have my headphones on, as I do now, I can't hear a thing before, when I'd be gaming and I'd be gaming hard, I could hear those fans even with my nice over-the-ear headphones on. So it's an improvement insofar that it runs way cooler and it's quieter, but it's not completely quiet. And I say that with a crooked smile to say that it doesn't bother me, but it bothers me.
Doesn't it? Yeah.
But it does. So when I build a new computer, I will definitely reuse this graphics card, and I may take this particular cooler off. And EVGA also makes copper water blocks for their graphics card.
Okay.
So I could get one specific to this model that would fit into a custom cooling loop. So,
okay.
Yeah, so I will probably, when and if I decide to build my new Ryzen 9 3950, which is supposed to launch at the end of the month, I probably will not buy one right away. I'm going to wait for reviews. When and if I do decide to buy that new processor and new motherboard and memory, I will probably go ahead and start piecing together a custom loop, which means I will probably buy a custom water block that I can put in a custom loop. Just because it's just annoying enough. And you know what? If I'm being honest, like when you have an all-in-one cooler, these the tubing for them is flexible and kind of like braided. And my case is not very wide, so the cooling cords, the cooling loops that come off of the cooler, when I close my case, they're kind of bunched up. It's not hurting anything, but it's clear that there's just not enough room for all that tubing. So if I wanted a clean build, that would also be another benefit, but it's going to be an adventure when and if I go that route. So, it was really nerve-wracking installing this thing, right? Because I'm taking apart a very expensive piece of hardware. But the results I'm going to say are mixed, trending on good, just because I was hoping it would be just super silent, and it's not. So, yeah, so the Ryzen 9 3950 launches in about a week or so from the time of this recording. I'm going to wait and see kind of how it's reviewed. I think that AMD has released really nice processors.
Did you hear the latest rumor about AMD and how they're going to be the chips in the next Microsoft Surface laptops?
I have heard that rumor.
Yeah.
That's all I'm going to say about that.
All right.
Yeah, so for those of you that haven't seen, there was a rumor floating around. So Microsoft has a press event for early October in New York, I believe. And the speculation is it's going to be the new series of Surface laptops. I don't know if they'll be Surface Books, but Surface laptops. And there are rumors flying around that there will be AMD-based things, which I think would be a really big win for AMD.
It would be.
AMD has had a very, very good summer. There was a little bit of shenanigans around their launch and turbo frequencies and things, but I think by and large those have been mostly worked out. And they released the new series Ryzens. They beat Intel to 7 nanometers on the die, which is a big deal for a lot of reasons that I don't necessarily want to go into this late in the podcast. But the one chip they did not release over the summer is the Ryzen 9 3950, which is going to be, I think, a 12 or I can't remember if it's 12 or 16 core. Where's my ticket? Okay, here it is. It is a 16 core, 32 thread desktop processor with a 4.7 gigahertz boost, which my Intel is currently a 5 gigahertz boost. Again, that's not, that's stock. I'm sure it can be overclocked to be even higher. So this thing is going to be a behemoth. It's going to be I'm expecting really big things about it. And again, I think it's supposed to launch by the end of this month. I had heard September 30th, but it's kind of one of those things where every day there seems to be a new headline. It's supposed to launch for about $700, which, Intel's most comparable part here. I mean, when you start getting into thread counts this high, or like Xeons, which are not $700. So I'm really excited for this. There's a lot of good reasons to go to AMD these days, and I think it will finally get me to go back to AMD, because I haven't built an AMD system since the very first Athlons. So I'm really looking forward to it, and like I said, my cooling solution may change, in between that times. But the other thing that kind of stinks here is like, this custom loop or this custom all-in-one cooler for my graphics card, it wasn't cheap. It was, less than $200, but around there. So I'd be kind of like throwing that away if I took this thing off and didn't use it. So there is the sting of that a little bit, but man, some of those custom loops that I see online are just so freaking cool. Anyway. So yeah, that was my big project over the last few days. Nice. Yeah, the performance is good.
Good.
Let's just say it's a solid 3 out of 5. It's not terrible. Okay. It's not great. It's much quieter, which is a good win, but it's not completely silent, which is what I wanted.
You can't win them. Anyway. You can't win them all.
Yeah, well, I've never won them all. No. So. Oh boy. Okay, Paul. So coming up on the end of the podcast, let's talk about how people can get in touch with us. Before we get into that, though, did we get any user submissions for the intro?
So we have 2. One from friend of the show, Eugene, or I guess he goes by Gene, and one by friend of the show, Rob. So if you're this far, you've already heard one, because I'm going to put one at the beginning of the podcast, and then I probably, as they each come in, they'll probably each get a spot in the podcast. Then I imagine we'll just pick the best one, and that'll just be our for real, forever introduction. So
yeah. I'll tell you what, not that I'm telling you which one to pick for this week, because I want to hear them both. I do. I want to hear Gene's and I want to hear Rob's, but man, I could just listen to Rob read the phone book. I mean, I really could. Man, he's got such a great voice. He is a world traveler this week. I got to get caught up with him. He's a good dude. If he ever makes it stateside, man, he would definitely go to a metal show with you.
Okay. Hey, more the merrier.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about where people can get a hold of us. So, Paul, do the honors.
So we're on Twitter at DoingBestPod, and you can send us an email or your recorded intro to contact@doingtheirbest.com. I can be found on the Twitters at Paul Baylor. And where can we find you, Drew?
Yeah, I'm on the Twitters at Pittsburgh, and just like Paul said, so if you're new to the podcast, and this is where you're picking up, we had asked our listeners, aka our besties, to record an intro for the show. You can be as funny or as irreverent or butcher my last name as much as you want. I think that's also funny. So I'm hoping we get some more submissions. And like Paul said, we'll every time someone sends one in, you'll at least get one play, and hopefully we'll settle on one once we go forward. So keep them coming. I'm glad that we have loyal listeners that are doing it. And listen, I don't care what the quality is.
Nope.
I mean, you don't need an expensive microphone. You could do it on your phone. We don't care about the audio format because Paul's an audio wizard. We will figure it out. Just keep them coming, because I think it's awesome to get some audience participation.
Yeah, no, I've enjoyed them both so far, and yeah, it's great to get that kind of participation. So yeah, we really appreciate it.
Yeah. All right. Well, Paul, I think that'll about do it for this episode. Okay. So once again, everybody, thanks for listening, and we'll see you all next week.
Yeah, thanks a lot.